Yeah. Hello, everyone. So, welcome to another workshop with respect to the cloud computing series, which we have talked about. And here we are going to talk more about how we are going to actually create a particular application, not create, deploy an application on the cloud. And we'll also talk about how to use the blob storage to um, set up a static website. So that's what we are going to do in this particular thing. So this is basically a continuation of our previous introduction to cloud computing with Azure, and we'll continue with the same as such. And as the series progresses, you'll see that we are building more towards a basic application which is highly available, okay, which is multi-tier. So right now we are going to talk about the front end, the back end, and then we might also have the database layer. So we'll have a multi-tier application which is highly available, which is served in different places, which is well architected to a certain level as such. Okay, and so let's go ahead and begin now. In the last session, we had talked about how to create a virtual machine in the Azure cloud, and we had used the Ubuntu VM for that very purpose. Okay, so today what we'll do is we'll go ahead and deploy that particular application as such. So let's see how exactly that's going to work. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So what I did was simply go here, okay? So we had actually created this Python Flask application, okay, called COVID in the last one of the last sessions as such, which is already on YouTube. And we had made sure that we are able to get some curl calls. We are able to get some data from this particular application. So we'll see how exactly that's going to work as well. Okay, so what I simply did was made sure that I install Git on the system first. So I've already logged into my machine. Okay, so sudo apt. So once I logged in, sudo apt install Git. Okay, so since it's already installed, we don't have to bother with that. Okay, and then we've got sudo apt install python 3 pip. So the reason I'm using this python 3 pip is so that we are able to install the dependencies, okay, for this particular application, which are available in the requirements.txt file. Okay, now let's go ahead and see what exactly happens here. Okay, this one has been installed as well. Okay, the next one would be to clone this repository. So you go to this repository. Okay, you'll find this particular link to it. You'll find this URI. Okay, just copy this. Just clicking on this will allow you to copy it. Go back, git clone. You'll be able to do this with this particular URI. So hit enter and it'll clone that particular repository for you. Okay. Now, since I've already cloned it, okay, it's already over here. Let's just take a look at it. So what I saw was that I had not added the requirements.txt file, which contains the dependency earlier. So I made sure that I add that and push it back to the repository. So you'll find it over here. Okay. And let's go ahead and install these dependencies. Okay, we need these Python dependencies to make sure that we run this particular application. So how do I do that? So pip. So to make it much more clearer, okay, pip is basically a Python dependency installation packaging system. It's all in all an application, Python library, which allows you to install, build, and deploy Python modules, Python libraries as such. So if I do pip install, say, requests, it'll install the Python library for requests as such. Now, if I want to specifically install requirements as dictated for this particular application, then I need to use this requirements.txt file. So how do I do that? Pip install -r requirements.txt. So -r is basically the argument so that you can install from this particular file. So I do this, hit install. Okay, it says that this particular command cannot be found. So let's try this, pip3. So I probably might have installed pip3 for this. So let's go ahead and see what happens here. Okay, looks good. So it installs these particular dependencies as such, okay, whatever is there in this requirements file. Now, just to make sure our application is running just fine, I can just run this particular thing, Python app.py, or not app.py. So we've got Python datascript.py. Okay. So apparently the request module is not installed. Let's go ahead and see what's there in the requirements.txt. Okay, the request is there, but I believe there's an issue with this. So pip3 install requests. I'll just install it by hand. Yeah. So sometimes what happens is that if you've not defined the right dependency, so I believe there might have been a problem where I have not used the right version of it. So this might have been for Python 2, and here we've got Python 3 as such. So let's see if it actually works right now. Okay, so we've got probably a certain issue over here. Let me just take a look at it. Oh, so let's see if we can do this. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I think I'm sure what the issue is about. Since we are using Python 3, and this might also have, yes. So the issue was basically I had a conflict between Python 2 and Python 3. So I already had Python 2 installed on the system. So what we needed was Python 3. So we are getting all this data in as such, okay? And we basically have whatever we need as such. Now, how exactly can I make use of this particular application? How can I actually make use of this application? So we could do a certain what do you say, simple app to make sure that we have this information available externally as such. So how do we do that? We can make sure that we can probably have like a simple web server, maybe Flask as such, okay, to serve out this information to us. Okay, so let's take a quick look into this, how we can quickly install a Flask web server. Okay, over here, let's go ahead. Yeah, we can do this. Yeah, let's do this. App.py from Flask import Flask. So I'll just quickly create a simple Flask web server over here. Okay, then we've got app is equal to Flask underscore name. I'm instantiating the app which I need. So if you want details regarding how exactly to create the Flask web server, what exactly are the details within this, you can go to another video which I have on YouTube with respect to how to create a simple project structure in Python using Flask. Okay, that'll help you with it. So app.run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this available, from everywhere, 0.0.0.0. I'm not going to bind it to the local host. Okay, so we can do it this way. So host is equal to so, and we've got port is equal to, let's probably put it on port 8080. Okay, and debug equals to true. Okay. Python app.py. So we don't have the Flask module. So pip3 install Flask. Okay, that's good. And I made another mistake again. It's Python 3 app.py. So we've got the Flask web server up and running over here. Okay, so it's all good. Now, what exactly do we want to do? We want to make sure that we have one of these requests, okay, which we have in data script, py, at least one of these, to be served from the Flask application. Okay, so how do we, how do we do that as such? Okay, we could probably take a look at one of these over here, maybe a simple one. Okay, not much of detail as such. Let's take a look at maybe this one, get day one, which we have over here. Okay, for Canada, I guess, and or we could make it much more complex, but we'll keep it as simple as possible. Okay, so we'll do this. So let's take a look at app.py. So import data script. Okay, because we created this particular thing, right? From earlier. And let's see if we can do this. So over here, we need this application, right? So dev, let's do this. Okay, so we don't want this. Let's do it. This app.route of. I'll just put it at the default level as such. We don't want anything specific. So let's put this as def index. As of now, we'll just keep it as simple as possible. Okay. And return get day one of Canada. Okay, but the thing is that this get day one still does not exist over here. So we'll just do a slight change to this from data script import this particular function or such. Okay, this particular function. So let's see if that works for us. Okay, so Python 3 app.py. Okay, so this looks good so far. Okay, this looks good so far. So let's see if we can actually curl this particular application. So before we do a curl on this application, just let's take a look at what the IP basically for this is. Okay, so let's go here and let's go to this guy. Okay, let's take a look at the public IP for this guy over here. So we've got the public IP for him over here. So let's go here. Okay. I'll add one more route to this just for a health check before we do anything else. Route / health, because we want to make sure the the route which we are accessing is healthy. Health return, say we'll put it as this healthy. Okay, we're not going to stick to a lot of conventions as of now. We'll just go as we as it comes. Healthy. And so I'm on my local environment. So let's see if we can actually do a curl to this particular machine. Sorry. Curl HTTP so and so, and it's on 8080, which we have done. Yeah, 8080. Okay, and we'll do a health check. Okay, so what's happened over here is we probably have not made an open route to this particular health, not health, to this application as such. So it does not allow us to listen at this to this particular IP. So let's see if we can actually get that done right now. Okay, let's take a look at this. So if we are not going to do it today, we'll probably do it in the next class. Over here. So networking. Okay, so over here. Okay, so it says there are a couple of things which are allowed over here, which is like SSH 22 from anywhere. Okay, now I'm going to try to add 8080 as one of the ports which we want to be able to access from anywhere as such. So let's see if this actually works for us. Okay, so it's trying to create security rule for port 8080, just to make sure that is available to us. You see port 8080, any, that is source and destination. Okay, so you are able to access this port 8080 from anywhere as such. Okay, just like we had port 22 open earlier. Okay, it's not a good idea to keep all these ports open unless you have like proper security built in. So you see this SSH. So you need to be really specific as to why do you want to keep these ports open as such. For example, leaving SSH open from any location is not really a good idea. I would probably say I want to bind it to my my local host or my VPN or something like that. But for now, just for testing purposes, we'll keep it open as it is. Okay. And now since we've added this, let's see if it actually works for us. Okay. So you see, we got a response saying it is healthy. That means we are able to access it. And just to make sure, you can see that there is a 200 on that particular route. Okay. Now, let's go and hit the other route for our data. Okay. Go here. Let's hit this guy. Okay. It says, the view did not return a valid function or whatever it might be, valid response and stuff like that. It's probably because we might have returned something like, which is not really, supported as such. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. What exactly was required? So you see a return get day one. Let's take a look at how we can, simply debug this. I'll just create a simple one, test.py from data script import get day1. Okay, print get day1 of Canada. See what happened. So Python 3 test.py. Okay, it gives us a particular list as such. That's quite a possibility that it might have done a certain return on a data structure which is not supported. We'll just take a look at the type of this particular item. Okay, so when we do this and see what type it is, it says classes list. So it wouldn't be really advisable, because if you see here on this, it says what is required is a string dict tuple or a response instance, and what we are returning here is a list. Okay, which is not really a good idea. So what we'll do instead is go here app.py and maybe return this in a sort of slightly different manner. So since it's a list, we can JSONify it. So we will do this, JSONify, convert it into a JSON format. Okay, so we'll do this here, JSONify. Okay, and we'll just put it like this within a big structure, put it like this, and we'll just put it as data of get day1 of Canada, so and so, and we'll see this. And let's try to run this again and see how it actually works for us, whether we get that same issue or not. Okay, so we go here, and that's all good. You see, you get a return on whatever you were looking for. So basically, we had like an issue that it was a list, and it couldn't be processed by the Flask web app. So we've we've wrapped it within a JSONify function, and made sure we get returned a JSON object as such. So this is all good over here, and you can go to the top, you get all this data, and you can actually see. So it's a whole lot of data. Okay, so let's not bother with it now. So we've set the base for this as such. Now you can see that. So what have we really accomplished with this? So we've made sure that we are able to create an instance on the cloud, that is the Azure cloud. We are able to deploy a web application, okay, and we are able to curl to this particular web application, or basically send a request to these web applications which are on the cloud. That means, okay, you are able, as long as you know this IP, or say I have a domain name against it. Maybe I say my COVID blah 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 .com or something like that. I can fix it to that particular IP or whatever it might be. .8080. Okay. .8080 is not usually given to custom domain names. So for example, you give a particular custom domain name, you can directly call the custom domain. But in this case, since we have the IP and you have this with 8080, you can do a curl on this particular, or any sort of client which can send a request to this particular application from anywhere in the world. Okay, because we set this port 8080 over here to be open to anywhere in the world as such. Okay, so that's about deploying a simple Python web application on on Azure as such, and on an Azure VM as such. Okay, so that being said, let's move on to the next part as such. Okay, so we've established a simple structure where we have a VM which contains the backend for an application. So now what do we do about the front end? If we are talking about a much more better architected system, we always talk about the front end as well. Okay, and the front end, we could have it served through some sort of a client facing application as such. Okay, and something which requires HTML, CSS, or similar frameworks like say Vue.js or React or Angular as such. And how can we make that happen with with respect to Azure as such? Okay, so now let's go over here. Once we go over here, so I'd already set up something like this earlier, but let's walk through this. So as I spoke about this earlier, in the last session, okay, you have the Azure portal. Okay, so we have already accessed virtual machines earlier. Now we've got storage accounts. Okay, this is what we are talking about now, is the blob storage. Okay, because we want to deploy a static website on Azure. Okay, and it's a very simple process. Not much goes into it. Let's go over here. Okay, and let's simply create a storage account for ourselves. So I'll just start with an add. You have got various, so as I said from last week, we've got resource groups. We'll just simply create a resource group called say COVID. Okay, so nothing found over here. So you need to create this. So let's see. Okay, there's nothing. So since this is a globally available resource, if that name has already been taken up, okay, it will not, it will not allow you to create that. So since I'm going to, it's not done. Oh, my bad. It should be over here. Okay, this is a resource group which is like local to your system. So my bad. So let's see if it comes up over here. So you see, this storage account name COVID has already been taken. Okay, so we'll call it as COVID underscore app. Sorry, COVID underscore is not allowed. So we'll say COVID app. Okay, the location which I'm going to deploy it in is the West Europe group. And you should remember that the type of account, if you are going to deploy a static web application in Azure on blob storage, it has to be of storage v2 type, the general purpose v2 storage, because that's the only thing which is supported as of now. Okay, and you've got like read access geo-redundant storage, which means it is redundantly spread across various locations as such. Okay, we'll talk about redundancy in one of the next topics as such. Connectivity method. You've got this public endpoint. Okay, the public endpoint, because you want to be able to access this endpoint from anywhere around the world again. Okay, let's go next. Security has been, so security, basically we are talking about the HTTPS protocol. Okay, so earlier our backend was on HTTP, which is not really a very good idea. We should probably make it much more, robust by having like HTTPS. And when it comes to Azure with Blob storage, you already have this available as such. So we make it, secure transfer. Okay, we don't need anything much more over here. So we'll go to the next part over here. So we'll say name is say COVID app. So app, we'll keep it a little bit more consistent. And we go review and create. Okay, so let's go ahead and create with these details. Okay, it'll take a few seconds, maybe a minute or so. Let's take a few seconds to wait on this. So in the meanwhile, okay, what I've done is I've already created a few things over here. Okay, like let's do this. So what is required is we need two different files. One is an index file, and we need a 404, 404 file. So the index file is your root file, which would be deployed as such in your storage account as such when it comes to having static website deployed. And the 404 basically means that you're talking about the route not found as such. So we're not really bothered a lot with that, but let's try it anyways. So we'll put it in this directory cp. Let's do this 404. So let's go to cd COVID. Let's modify that file, and we'll create an index file from the 404 index.html. 404 will contain simply this much, okay, which says the page does not exist. Okay, and index.html. So what we'll do is we'll just change this my COVID app. We'll just keep it, as simple as possible. And then we can grow on this, in the upcoming session. Okay, and now let's go to the resource. So we've made it, really simple. We don't want anything much. Okay, so we go to this. We go to this particular dashboard for that particular storage account, and then on the left-hand side, you'll see here what is known as static website. Okay, so we want to enable a static website. Okay, and we have the index document path called index.html. So we set it to that. Depends on your document. And then you've got the error path which is 404.html. So let's do this, save this. Okay, now when it comes to your application being deployed, okay, you will see that it will be deployed at this particular endpoint. Okay, it will be deployed at this particular endpoint. So we'll just open it up here and see what exactly is there. You'll see that there is no content over here as such. Why? That's because we've not uploaded these details yet. Okay, so let's go ahead and upload these details. Okay, so we've saved all these things. Let's go to Storage Explorer. Okay, so when you do something like this, what it does is it would create a default directory within this storage account called only for us, for the static website. It creates this default directory called $web. Okay. And when we create the $web, we don't create it. Azure does it for you. You go over here. Okay. So it'll open up this particular, screen. And you simply go here to an upload of these documents which we were talking about. So let's go here, and we've got two of these as such. So we've got index.html, sorry, my bad. So we want to go to basic scripting. Hold on a second, please. And let me just take a look over here. So yeah, 404 and index.html, which we had created earlier. Open this up. So what you can do is, if in the future you want to keep on, improving your application and make sure the latest one is deployed, you can always try to do this, overwrite if file already exists, so that, every time you deploy this particular index.html, a new version, as in the updated version, will be overwriting this index.html. Otherwise, what happens is that you have like multiple versions of that file already in your storage container. So let's upload it. Took a few seconds, or took a few milliseconds or something like that. So we have this. Now let's go back here and see what actually happens. We'll go hit enter. You see, my COVID app is up and ready for you. Okay. So that's how you actually do it, and there's nothing much to it. So now if I try to probably access a route which does not exist, so I say /test, you see, you get the 404. So no matter what you do, if you try to if you try to access a route which does not exist, then you'll get this 404 which we had created from earlier. So you see this, we had set this to this page does not exist as such. So that's about it when it comes to our, our workshop for today, where we have learned about how to how to deploy a backend web application on the cloud using Azure. Okay, we had used a container, not a container, but a VM for that. We've also seen how to create simply, a very simple way of creating a static website on Azure, how to, how to create the container, how to upload our particular files, and how to deploy that particular static website on Azure as such. So that's pretty much what we are going to do. And we are going to stop over here for the current workshop. And in the next workshop, we are going to continue building on this particular application.